Which NFL teams are the real Super Bowl contenders in 2024? What's going on, football fans? It's Mitch, back with another NFL video. And in this video, my Super Bowl bubble. That's right, I'm not reacting to someone else's Super Bowl bubble. It's my 2024 Super Bowl bubble. And if you're not familiar with the concept, it's the 12 teams that I believe can actually win the Super Bowl in 2024. And the closer to the middle of the bubble that you get, the bigger favorite I believe your team is to win the Super Bowl this year. That sounds good? Gronk, spike the like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more NFL content just like this. Also, let me know in the comment section below your opinion on my Super Bowl bubble, my Super Bowl contenders, the teams that can actually win the whole thing this season. Everyone dreams of their team raising the Lombardi, but only a few teams actually have a chance every year, and these are the teams that are not just going to make the playoffs or win their division or have a chance. These are the teams that actually legitimately belong in the conversation of contender. Let's go. Let's take a look at my Super Bowl bubble. So it all begins with none other than the Kansas City Chiefs as the primary favorite to win the Super Bowl. They've won the Super Bowl back-to-back seasons, so you have to give them the respect that is due of being back-to-back champions. That means they've been there, they've done that, they know how to win it, they have Patrick Mahomes, they have Andy Reid, and really when you think about the Chiefs, I think that they have two top 5 units on offense and defense. This is one of the best Chiefs teams that Patrick Mahomes has ever had. It might be one of the better rosters that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have ever had. I feel like the last 2 years, the Chiefs have won because of coaching, quarterback play, and some clutch performances by Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, and a few others. But this year, they don't have the holes at wide receiver that they had previously. They don't have the holes on defense that they've had in previous years. This is a cohesive whole of a football team. Maybe they have small things that you're worried about, but as a full roster, top to bottom, they're pretty complete. And I think that that is a legitimate reason they can three-peat. Now, the worry with them is, of course, like injuries, wear and tear. Like, it's really hard to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. Like, nobody has ever done it. So there's a reason for that. Teams kind of figure you out. Some teams maybe have a better matchup against you than previously. Everybody's trying to draft for your roster, draft to beat your team, draft to defend your quarterback. Pick up free agents throughout the course of the offseason to give them the edge on you. Specifically, you have the target on your back. So for the Chiefs, they have to overcome all of that. Will they be able to is the question. It's been an interesting offseason for them, but they're definitely the favorite in the NFL. There's no question. So they're near the middle of my Super Bowl bubble. And how I've basically done it here is that I have 2 teams that are basically like an identical stance. One team in the AFC, one team in the NFC. Didn't really want to give the edge to either one, so I just kind of put them as close to the middle to formulate my bubble as possible. So I have the 49ers as the top team in the NFC, and pretty much everything I said about the Chiefs can just be copy and pasted. The only difference is that the Chiefs have been the team that have beat the Niners. If the Chiefs did not exist, the Niners probably have 2 Super Bowl championships, and they've been to, 4 out of 5 NFC title games. This is probably the best roster in the NFL. They have one of the top coaches in Kyle Shanahan in the NFL. They have a young ascending quarterback in Brock Purdy who I expect to be at his best in 2024. We've already heard raving reports about Brock Purdy in camp. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's thicker, he's hungrier than ever, and he's going to be smarter than ever. I think that his precision within this offense, which was already number 1 in EPA, number 1 in success rate, number 1 in running the ball, number 1 in passing the ball. You guys saw my offense rankings, like the graphics outrageous. This team has the best running back. This team has the best left tackle. This team has one of the best edge rushers, one of the best linebackers, one of the best cornerbacks, one of the best receivers, one of the other best receivers. This team is loaded, and they're back. And now if maybe they get a little bit better at corner with a young player or two, or maybe they get a little bit better on the offensive line with somebody like Dominic Puny, or maybe just overall the cohesion adds up from last season to this season, right? They didn't lose any pieces on the O-line. They only improved their secondary. They get Hufanga back, right? The D-line is excellent with Malik Collins and Leonard Floyd being new faces to Javon Hargrave and Nick Bosa, one of the most complete D-lines in football. Dre Greenlaw, when he's healthy, alongside Fred Warner, but they got Devondre Campbell to back him up. They've got Jair Brown, who I'm excited for as a young player. Even Malik Mustafa as a rookie, I'm excited for. Green out of FSU at corner. Yadam was a nice little ad from New Orleans. Ricky Pearsall as a rookie receiver. Jawan Jennings, all these pieces, right? Jordan Mason, another guy. Like all these guys, they have a complete roster. They have depth everywhere. And you could argue that the defensive staff is also stronger in terms of coaching. Adding a name like Brandon Staley, who has coached a number 1 defense. That's the reason he got a head coaching gig once upon a time in 2020, right? So the Niners are just as good as last year, just like the Chiefs, right? Both teams should be considered the favorites for their conference. That does not mean they're going to win their conference, but they should be considered the favorites. The next team that I want to include in my bubble is the Houston Texans. That's right. I got the Texans as the number 3 team. I'm very confident about the Texans, despite the Nico Autry news of him being suspended for 6 games. Oh, well, that happens. But Danico Autry will be there when the games matter, so that's all I really care about. But when you have, a young ascending elite quarterback in CJ Stroud, a young impressive coach like D'Amico Ryans, your offensive coordinator, despite having a phenomenal year in year 1, actually sticks around and doesn't take a head coaching gig, that's huge. Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, premier receivers everywhere. Stephon Diggs added to the mix to Nico Collins and Tank Dell, Joe Mixon, Dalton Schultz. This offense is elite. It's got so much talent on it, and I think their run game will be improved. And really, when you think about it, if the offensive line can just remain healthy and the secondary can remain healthy, those are the 2 areas of primary weakness, you would say, for the Texans. They have more depth in the secondary. I think they're growing in terms of Jalen Petrie, Stingley. These guys are getting closer to their prime. Will Anderson has another year. Christian Harris has another year, right? Some of these guys that have been year 1, year 2, year 3. Tank Dell is year 2, although he did get injured last year, right? So some of these guys are now entering, they're not too young to win. So the Texans are kind of getting to that point where, yeah, they might still be looked at as young because Stroud is young, but when you really think about their team, they added the necessary veterans, right? Joe Mixon, Daniil Hunter, Danico Autry. They added the necessary veterans. They have Jimmy Ward. They have Al-Shaair, 49ers, who have been there and played in big games. So they've got a lot of a nice mix. Shaq Mason is a veteran who's won multiple Super Bowls. So they have a good mix of youth, veterans, some veterans that have never won anything and want to win something, young coaching, young quarterback play, guys entering their prime, and they've got a very well-rounded roster of a good pass rush, great receiving core, a good cornerback, all the necessary elements of winning a Super Bowl in 2024. A quarterback that can go above and beyond the system. So the Texans are that team that I look at, and especially against the Chiefs, I think they might give the Chiefs the toughest test because of the way that they will be playing, especially on offense, with that receiving core and the way they can spread the wealth and the way they can pick on matchups and the way that Stroud can go above and beyond, the system and the structure of the offense. And the defense is nasty up front, which is also an issue at times, especially those tackles of the Chiefs. So the Texans are that team that I think could terminate Kansas City, but Kansas City still deserves the respect. Now, the next team is the Detroit Lions. I have the Detroit Lions right in the mix with the 49ers, the Chiefs, and the Texans. I wanted to include another NFC team in here, and I feel more confident about the Lions than I did last year. I definitely do. I think seeing a year of them get it done and win a couple playoff games and getting over the hump of they're Detroit, they're the Lions, they never win anything. Getting over that hump mentally, I think was a big deal for me personally. And I think we saw that for them last year. We also saw, I feel like one of the best offenses in the league. I think they have the best offensive line in the league. I think they have a plethora of young players that are expected to ascend. Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams. All these guys are hitting the right age. Aiden Hutchinson, right? Melon Fonwu. All these guys are hitting the right age. They still have a couple younger guys, right? Terrion Arnold should play a big role here. They added some veterans to the mix as well. DJ Reader, Marcus Davenport on defense, Carlton Davis, who's won a Super Bowl before. And they did fix their biggest deficiencies, you would think. They only strengthened their run defense with DJ Reader and Marcus Davenport. They definitely did add some corners to help cover the primary weakness of their team, which was the number one receiver on the opposing team. So Carlton Davis should help. Terrion Arnold should help. Manuel Mosley is back. Amik Robertson has been added. They added a kid in the draft, Rakestraw at a safety corner. So they've done a lot here to help improve the biggest areas of deficiencies in their opinion. And then also on offense, we know they can run it on anybody. They can stay balanced. They can hit you with play action. Jared Goff has improved. So yeah, this is a real contender. This is a team that can beat anybody in the NFL on their day. It's just a matter of, I feel like in the NFC title game, the Super Bowl, can Jared Goff come through in that big moment? I think that's the only thing we're left to be waiting to see, because he hasn't really done that quite yet in his NFL career. He's gotten to the Super Bowl, he's gotten to the NFC title game, but in those moments, he's been a little bit shy in the biggest moments. So yeah, the Lions are in that bubble. Next up, we've got the Bengals, who are right there in the mix. The Cincinnati Bengals are absolutely elite team when Joe Burrow plays. And I've said that so many times this offseason, I feel like a broken record, but it's absolutely a fact. And I've said it many times, I'll say it again. I believe this is the best offensive line that Joe Burrow has ever had in his career, and it also features quite a bit of depth, including a first-round pick, Amarius Mims. Trent Brown, Orlando Brown, Karras, and Kappa on the inside. You've got Chase Brown, who I'm excited for at running back. Mike Gesicki at tight end as an added dimension. The receivers are interesting, like Trenton Irwin, Burton as a rookie out of Alabama. Of course, you've got Chase, you've got Higgins. You've got the 1-2 options, but you've also got the depth that I feel like might shock some people. And then defensively is really the biggest question mark about them. But I do feel like I wish they would add maybe one more veteran to their secondary. But I think they're going to be a lot better than last year. I think overall the defensive line is deeper. Hopefully Miles Murphy could take a step forward, but Trey Hendrickson is elite. I think Sheldon Rankins gives them a steady defensive tackle that's going to be on the field alongside BJ Hill. Sam Hubbard should be better than last year because he was injured. They've got a pretty solid D-line. Their linebackers are solid. Their safeties are much improved with Geno Stone and Von Bell. So the Bengals have improved areas of weakness as well. DJ Turner is a big one. Can he really improve in year two? Cam Taylor-Britt, can he stay healthy? Mike Hilton, we know how good he is. So the Bengals are very complete. If they combine an elite offense with a very optimistic and game plan a specific defense, they can beat anybody, and they have the formula to beat the Chiefs as well because of how good their offense is. So they're in the Super Bowl bubble. Next up, we got the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are here because of Josh Allen. And they've been a very consistent force in the AFC and the NFL. They consistently won their division 4 years in a row. I think they have an underrated offense entering 2024 because a lot of people are talking about, oh, they lost Stephon Diggs. But they fail to mention that they'll be more of a run-heavy team with James Cook and Josh Allen carrying the load of the offense, along with multi-tight end sets of Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, who I really expect to take a huge step forward. Coleman is looking real good in training camp, according to reports. That is promising. Alongside Curtis Samuel, who I'm a fan of, and Khalil Shakir, who's super underrated. I think they'll have a pretty underrated receiving core, especially over the back half of the season, where I expect those guys to really stick and find their roles. On top of guys like Chase Claypool, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Mac Hollins, they should find a good combination of receivers for Josh Allen who can elevate players around him. The O-line is very good, led by Deion Dawkins. Defensively, Sean McDermott never has below top 10 defense. And if Matt Milano is healthy, I wouldn't expect that to change. Love their cornerbacks, Benford, Taron Johnson. And then, of course, they have Rasul Douglas. Safeties are new, fresh, but Mike Edwards, Taylor Rapp, the rookie Cole Bishop's interesting. I think that the D-line is the biggest area of question mark in terms of like Leonard Floyd left. That's like 9 sacks out the door. But if Von Miller could be better post Achilles, and, I like AJ Epinesa, if he could take a step forward, that could really help Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, and of course, Gregory Rousseau get to the quarterback. So the Bills are not as big of name value as they've been, but I think they're every bit as good as they have been the last couple of years, because I think the coaching is on the right wavelength with the players. And that's a big deal. The last year or two, it feels like they've been a little inconsistent, and I feel like they're going to hone in on what their identity is, even if that means they're a little bit less explosive. I think that means they might be an overall more structured and better team for it. And they've got number 17. Did I fail to mention that? Next up, we have the Baltimore Ravens, who have the MVP at quarterback Lamar Jackson. And for that reason, they deserve to be in the bubble. I don't care. Okay, the offensive line is underwhelming, and I've said that many times. They lost 3 starters, right? John Simpson, Morgan Moses, and who's the other one? Kevin Zeitler. Didn't forget, guys. Didn't forget. Derrick Henry was added. Mark Andrews is back. And of course, I expect Zay Flowers to take a big step. I think that the offense will be good. I don't think it will be elite, just because I think the O-line will be a little inconsistent in both areas. But I do feel like as long as, they could get the ball to their primary playmakers, and it feels like they have one at every position, which is something that's unique for Lamar. Like, he's never really had a really good running back, a really good tight end, and a really good receiver, and that could be the case this year. If Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar can play complementary roles along with Isaiah Likely, this could be still a top 10 offense. There's no doubt about it. It's just coming down to the big games against the big defenses and the best defenses, and when they play man coverage and when they slow Lamar down and they play the right pass rushing plan and they do all the little things to affect Lamar. Can Lamar take that next step of being great in the big playoff moments? That's all I'm looking for. Defensively, I feel like they're really still really good. It's just Mike McDonald is gone, and that kind of alleviates their edge. Also, the edge rush, speaking of edge, is a little underwhelming. Oweh needs to take a step forward, and linebacker Patrick Queen is certainly going to be a loss, as well as Geno Stone, but I feel like they're still a top 10 defense. The Ravens always have a very good defense, and with the middle of defense that they do have, Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams, Marlon Humphrey, Justin Madubuike, they are going to be very tough to move the ball on. So, the Ravens, they can find a way. If they can just have better game plan in the playoffs, maybe the offensive growth from year 1 to year 2, from play caller to quarterback relationship, could help them get there, and maybe even leaning on Derrick Henry could be the difference. But the Ravens are in my bubble for sure. Then we've got the Green Bay Packers, who are on a little bit closer to the edge of the bubble just because they have more to prove than these other teams. They won 1 playoff game with Jordan Love, but it's only 1, right? They did beat the Cowboys. It was impressive. They did blow them out, and they were close to beating the Niners, but they didn't get it done, right? So they have a little bit more to prove, and they have to prove consistency. I think that's what they have to prove and improve. I think that they have to prove to everybody that they can be as good as they were over the last half of the season for a full entire regular season and then into the playoffs. That's my thought, right? So the Green Bay Packers, I think, I think that the Green Bay Packers are a team that, man, they're going to be explosive on offense. They're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be able to stay balanced. They're going to be able to be powerful in the run game. I think that Josh Jacobs is really going to help them in December and January. I think that one of their receivers is bound to break out, right? Like, I think 3 or 4 of them are all talented. They all bring something different to the table. Jaden Reed with his quick route running capabilities, Watson with the pure athlete and speed that he brings, especially after the catch and stretching the field. Romeo Dobbs is a great jump ball receiver, and Wicks is a really savvy feeler of space and route runner, and Musgrave's also extremely athletic at tight end. Jordan Love, I think, could take another step forward this year, building that relationship with his receivers, building the play calling relationship with Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur is a dog as well, with a fresh cut. And I think the defense is really the area where I think they could go from like a good team to a great team, because the defense has talent. And they filled one of their biggest weaknesses at safety with McKinney. They changed coordinators, which is significant. If they're healthier at corner on the outside, right, with Alexander and company, that will really allow them to be at their best. Because last year they were missing corners and all that. And their pass rush is really deep, really good, really strong. Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary leading the way. You've got a young guy like Lucas Van Ness on his way up. Devontae Wyatt on his way up. Linebackers, Edrin Cooper, Quay Walker, pretty intriguing, very athletic. They have the pieces to run this 49er type scheme, so I'm very excited for it. It's just a matter of actually seeing it take shape, because I don't know how many years it's been where we've been like, the Packers are going to finally get there on defense, and they just never do. But now with the new coordinator and with all the pieces coming together, including a couple of improvements, you would hope that they could get to top 10 on both sides of the ball, and that would make them a real Super Bowl threat. So yeah, they're interesting. Then you've got the Philadelphia Eagles touching the side of the Super Bowl bubble. I think that they've got enough talent to be in this bubble. It's just a matter of, can it all come together, and can they kind of wash away what happened at the end of last year? Because it still sticks in the back of my mind. I mean, it was so bad. Like, it was one of the worst playoff performances I've ever seen in terms of desire, effort, like want to. It was awful. Jalen Hurts, I think, is a little overrated in my opinion going into this year. I love A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert. They've got great weapons. They have a top 3 offensive line. I think the defense is still a huge question. Linebackers are terrible. Safeties could be improved with Cooper DeJean, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Corners, we'll see what Quinyon Mitchell becomes. If he does not pan out right away, they're going to be in trouble. But if he does, then they could, it's an X factor type deal. So he could really elevate them. And then D-line wise, I think they've got players that people like know their name: Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, Georgia boys, but they're not that good. Like, let's be fair. Like, they need to improve. So, yes, they did bring in Huff, who I'm excited for, Josh Sweat. Obviously, Jalen Carter's a monster. So they've got enough talent on defense. They've got Vic Fangio coaching it. You would hope they can be at least a top half unit in the league, although it's not certain. Like, they could easily be a bottom 10 unit based on how they played last year. Like, they were like the worst defense in the league by the end of the season. So they're interesting. They could be explosive. They could be fun. But yeah, the Eagles are on the edge. Then next up, we've got the New York Jets on the edge as well. The New York Jets have a phenomenal defense. You could argue it's the best in football. It's at least in the top 3. The combination of having great corners, 3 cover corners like they do, and then a stout D-line in the run and the pass game, and athletic sideline-to-sideline linebackers, that's awesome, right? Then you have an offensive line in the Jets that I think is extremely improved. First of all, they get Elijah Vera Tucker back, but they get a stud Hall of Famer in Tyron Smith, who could really help rejuvenate Aaron Rodgers and his confidence. And then you add, of course, Morgan Moses to one side, who's a top 12 tackle according to PFF last year. And you add another guard in John Simpson, a couple Ravens to the mix. You get big, physical, tough. That will open up holes for Breece Hall, who's one of the best running backs, most dynamic playmakers in the NFL. Garrett Wilson's awesome. Mike Williams hopefully can get healthy. He'll be good. So I'm excited for the Jets, man. I think that they're one of those teams that it needs to come together. Their coaching needs to elevate. They need to figure it out in terms of their offense, their rhythm, what they're going to be, what they're going to do, what their identity is, if they're run heavy, if they're play action oriented, if it's just the Aaron Rodgers show, if it's a lot of quick passes, what exactly they're going to be. Defensively, they're going to be there as long as they stay healthy. Offensively, it's a matter of coming together and building an offense that also corresponds to the defensive strength, and then also being able to, when we get to January, putting together a game plan to be able to beat the top teams and the top coaches. They have the defense to be able to go toe-to-toe with any of these teams. They might not have, Aaron Rodgers might not be the same level as Mahomes anymore, but he's still smart. He's still accurate. And if you give him the ball with a good defense, he can win any game. So the Jets are right there on that. I know not everybody believes that. I believe that. That's why I have them right there. The Browns are one of those teams that you might not expect to be in my bubble, but they're like outside looking in, but they're still close. And the reason for that is they arguably have the best defense in the NFL. It's probably the deepest defense in the NFL. They have arguably the best cornerback trio in football, and they really have no weaknesses on their defense at all. They didn't lose anybody. They only added pieces, right? Jordan Hicks, they added a defensive tackle out of Ohio State in like the second round, who's I'm a fan of. And the offensive line is healthy now. Nick Chubb is healthy now. They added Jerry Jeudy now. So when you look at the roster, it's like a top 5 roster in the NFL without a doubt, but it comes down to the quarterback, Deshaun Watson. If Deshaun Watson can play, let's say, top 16 level in the NFL, this is a team that should make the playoffs. And then from the playoffs, can their defense dominate? Can their run game get going? Kevin Stefanski's a good play caller. Schwartz is a good coach. So I'm not really too worried about them getting out-coached in a big game. It's just out-quarterbacked. That's really what it comes down to. But if Watson can actually get to anywhere near the level he was at in Houston, this is a Super Bowl threat. And you at least have to talk about them in that manner. So that's why they're outside the Super Bowl bubble. And then the final team is the Los Angeles Rams. They have Sean McVay. They have Matthew Stafford. That's elite coach, elite quarterback. And they do have an excellent offense. I think their offense is going to score points. And when your offense can score points like that, control the game, run the football, stay balanced, you're going to be able to win any game you play in. Now, their defense is highly suspect because it's so young. Yes, they did improve maybe their secondary with Cameron Curl and Tre'Davious White and Darius Williams. That's nice and all, but it's still no Aaron Donald, no Raheem Morris, change there. The defensive line, everybody's excited for the rookies. But again, guys, these are rookies, okay? Rookies in the NFL, and you're trying to win the Super Bowl. So they improved their offensive line. They've got Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, who I'm excited about. Demarcus Robinson, don't sleep on him. And obviously, Kyron Williams is a stud. But, can the defense push them to that bubble? If they had a more certain defense, and I felt better about it, I'd probably have them in the bubble similar to the Packers. But I just don't believe that. I think that they're a really good offense with a rather young and limited defense still. But I could be wrong, and that's why they're the NFC version of the Browns. They're just outside that bubble. And that is my Super Bowl bubble for 2024, guys. So I hope you enjoyed. Gronk, spike the like button if you did. Let me know in the comments where you agree and disagree. It's Mitch. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Peace.